Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome back to Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It's March 30th, 2021. I'm Gavin Pickin, a software consultant for Ortus Solutions, and I've got the CommandBox creator himself, Brad Wood, along with me today. How you doing, Brad?
Just like I told you before the show, just copying and pasting documentation links into Slack for people. It's my job title.
Yep, King Copier.
I should write a command that does that. And we have commands that interact with Slack. And I could interact with the documentation. I needed a Slack command that goes through CommandBox and just grabs the documentation link and sticks it in.
Well, funnily enough, you talk about something like that. We have our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the day. Gives another type of search from the VS Code, and it searches a different service. We'll tell you about that a little later. Yeah, teaser. But
first,
now we can make one for CommandBox too. That'd be kind of cool. Get documentation searcher for some of our Ortus tools. That might be kind of nice. Right in VS Code. That would be kind of cool. So
there you go. Our podcast is done. We've had our brilliant idea for the day.
Yep,
we can
exactly.
all go home now.
Well, first let's thank our sponsors before we're done here. Thanks, Ortus Solutions. And just for those of you that don't know, Ortus Solutions are the maker of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and almost every other box out there. Not every box, but almost. But again, without them, we wouldn't be able to make this podcast possible. So a few ways you can say thank you back to Ortus Solutions if you like this podcast. Hopefully you do. You can like and subscribe our videos on YouTube. We're trying to push our numbers of subscribers up on YouTube, so please go and do that. And we can also have you sign up for a free or a paid account on CFCasts, which is releasing new content every week. Some of this content is paid, but a lot of it is free as well. And we have some pretty great content, and we'll cover that a little later in the show as well. And then a new way that you can support Ortus Solutions is by buying this new book that Luis has put together with a lot of the other Ortus team members. 102 ColdBox HMVC quick tips and tricks. And that's available up on Gumroad right now for purchase. So we'll have the link a little later as well. But a big part of this podcast being possible is our Patreon supporters too, Brad, right? We got 36 patrons now providing almost 80% of the podcast funding. So Luis is like, finally, I can put some more money back to the open source again.
This podcast has been sucking all the money out of open. No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I remember back when we only had like 5 Patreon supporters. I wondered if the ColdFusion community was big enough to actually get much more than that, but happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah, we added a few perks, which we'll talk about in the Patreon piece, but those perks have definitely helped bump that number up, because a lot of times people were supporting Ortus, but in different ways. So we've tried to give them the one route through Patreon, and they get all those perks, which they were paying for anyway. So this is kind of a nice way to see our support numbers. So we have 36 Patreons supporting us for 79% of the funding of this podcast. And you can find out more at patreon.com/ortussolutions and find a package that might suit you if you want to fork over your hard-earned money to support the podcast. So thank you to those who do, and we'll give you a list of them at the end of the show. Okay, before we leave the show, Brad, we should probably talk about some news and events. That's kind of why we're here, right? So
this is the news edition.
Yep, it is. So why don't you talk about the CFConfig update that we released last week?
I can do that. You got to remind me, what did I release?
Well, remember, for those who that might have missed it, Adobe released some updates to their Adobe CF engines, and we had to update CommandBox versions for everybody. And there was a couple of weird things that happened, and you had to figure out why.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I had a couple different reports for CFConfig not working, but it turned out that only one of them was actually a bug. One of them turned out to just be misunderstanding, which I'll mention as well, because not everybody would. It's the second time it had been brought up. So yeah, the first problem was, CFConfig reads and writes the XML files, behind the scenes that the Adobe ColdFusion parses when it reads your configuration. And so Adobe did some subtle changes in how they parse the XML file for your data sources. And as soon as the update dropped for the new 2016, 2018, and 2021 servers, people started booting up their servers on the latest version, and it would come up and say, the data source service is unavailable. Now the data sources would be there, and the admin would blow up. So it was a simple fix, just a slightly catastrophic behavior. That's why I wish we had the chance to test these updates before they were public. But I had it fixed by the next day. Had to bump up CFConfig, and unfortunately, there's no way to force people to update CFConfig, which is why I always say make sure you get the CommandBox update check module every time. It won't do it more than once a day, but every time you start CommandBox, it'll do a quick check and it'll say if your CLI is outdated or if any of your system modules are outdated. And it's really nice. That way, if John Berquist updates CF format, or any of your system modules, Eric updates the .env. Next time next day you come in, you start CommandBox, you'll be like, oh, we got 3 things out of date. You can instantly update them. Because quite a few people for the next couple days would come and be like, oh no, I updated and it doesn't work. And it's like, hold on, update CFConfig. We've already fixed it. You just got to get on the latest version of everything. The second thing that was reported to me, which turned out to not be a bug, it was just, oh yeah, okay, I guess that is how it should work, is somebody said the enable robust exception handling setting doesn't work. They said I set it with CFConfig and I don't get the robust errors. That's actually working as designed. It doesn't work unless you have the debugging module installed in ColdFusion. So CFConfig will write the setting in the appropriate place in the appropriate file, but if you haven't installed the debugging module in ColdFusion 2021, the setting's not going to do anything. Now, I'm not a fan of that because I think that's like first of all, there's no real point in, externalizing what's essentially an if statement to, put some more stuff in the page. I don't think Adobe did themselves any services as far as shrinking the installation size of ColdFusion by exporting a single if statement to output some additional information. But I had debated with Priyanka a bit, telling them that I thought that should just be something that worked out of the box without having to install a debugging module. It's not really like an add-on service. It's just like, hey, show me a real error page. But anyway, yeah. So that one turned out to not be a problem, but still something to keep in mind that you have to have the debugging module installed for some of those debugging settings to work. So even though you set the setting with CFConfig, it won't do anything without the module.
Yep.
Charlie asked in the chat here if the data source XML problem was only noticed in CommandBox. The answer is yes, it was probably only noticed in CommandBox, but probably the majority of people using CFConfig are CommandBox users. So if you were using CFConfig to import data sources into a standard installation of Adobe ColdFusion 2021, you would have also had the same problem. But probably 95% of all the people using CFConfig also happen to be using CommandBox. So that was the user base that hit it right away. Yeah. We had by we I mean John Clausen had the latest Adobe engines up on ForgeBox within a day of Adobe releasing them. So people were just instantly using them right away. I've actually found that people using CommandBox are faster to get on the newer updates when they come out. In fact, oftentimes it just happens automatically. If they have their CommandBox server.json set to just grab the latest, they'll come in the next day, restart their server, and like, boom, they just updated, they didn't even think about it. Now, we wouldn't want that in production, but for development, it's very quick and easy for people to update and to roll back, which is the nice thing. And so that people were hitting the new updates faster on CommandBox. Yes, it would definitely only be people using CFConfig.
Yeah, so not too many people would have jumped on and downloaded and installed that server. You use the CFConfig in the same day or two that we noticed this issue. But it could have happened, but we just didn't hear from them. So
yeah, those files are all in WDDX, which is a real verbose XML format, and Adobe did some slight change to how they parse it. So it was an easy fix, but obviously I don't have any visibility to when they do that, so we just have to test the new versions when they come out.
Yep. So again, just in case you missed it, yes, Adobe released updates for 2021, 2018, and even 2016 last week. And so the CFConfig stuff is good. And with some positive news too, with that, Adobe 2021 finally supports ColdBox, right? They finally fixed a couple of the issues we had, so it's running.
Yeah, update 1 does have the fix that allows the ColdBox framework to actually run on ColdFusion 2021. So there are about a 5-month span of ColdBox users saying, hey, can we update to 2021? And we're like, no, you can't. So that was a good thing. There was quite a selection of fixes there.
Yep, and then of course, like you said, we already have the CommandBox images updated. That was like the next day they were released, and then John also got to work on the Docker images. So our Docker version 3.3.0, Docker images were released for CommandBox, and so that allows you to, obviously run whichever version of the engines you'd like, but it does support 2021. It's done some updates for compatibility and security. But we do want to mention there is a potentially breaking change for some of you that the base CommandBox latest tag is now based on OpenJDK 11 rather than OpenJDK 8. So if you want to keep using 8 for some reason, you want to lock it down, you can just use the tag in the blog post that we'll share in the chat. Has all that information there, so you can go find that, and it's definitely worth noting because it did cause a little hiccup on one of our clients, but we just locked it down, and then we found the thing, and we're like, oh, we'll work on 11 if we do this, and so we fixed it. So
yeah, it's funny, whenever you're updating, it always seems like it's going to be something related to SSL. It's always some Cypher or TLS version, and that's the issue we have with our client. At least assuming you're thinking the same issue I was.
Yep.
Switch to the Docker containers using Java 11, and unfortunately, this was one of Lucy's servers. Brilliant, and I say that in tongue-in-cheek, chunks of code that I hate, but you have something wrapped in a try-catch, and the catch just doesn't do anything because, you don't need to know what the error was. I'm sure it wasn't important. So there was no way to even know what the error was because Lucy would just throw this kind of generic thing. It was the SSL install certificates, which is a Lucy-specific feature. So I had to, poke at Lucy with a stick to get the real error out, and it was like, oh, this version of Java refuses to use TLS version 1.0, which was being offered by a server we were trying to connect to. That would explain. But that's why we test, folks.
Yep. So those Docker images are released. We have a blog post up on the ortussolutions.com, again in the show notes and in the chat for those watching live, so you can find out a little bit more about what's in that release there. So, okay. Speaking of Docker images too, Charlie actually posted a blog post today on the ColdFusion forum about Adobe's Docker images moving from JFrog's bin tray. So traditionally,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so this is one of the ones that always threw people off because everyone goes to Docker Hub to look for Docker images because that's where you go. But Adobe's have always been on JFrog's bin tray service. Mm-hmm. But JFrog has announced that they're going to sunset that service on May 1st.
Are you serious? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
And so basically, we're not sure what they're doing yet. Charlie did, reach out with a post a while ago to see if there's any update. And they are obviously still supporting their Docker images. As Charlie mentioned, they updated all their images for 21, 2018, and 2016 this last week. So they're still, updating them. They're still going to support them. We're just not sure where they're going to be after May 1st. So, but yeah, bin tray is being shut down by JFrog. So that's where everything has been since 2018 when they started releasing the official Adobe Docker images. So if you're using an official one, just keep an eye out. Hopefully we'll have some more information there. But if you have the images pulled locally and everything, they'll still run. But the registrar link might obviously change once we know where they're going.
Hopefully they'll just move stuff over to Docker Hub, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people were sort of surprised originally when they didn't just put them on Docker Hub where almost literally all the images in the rest of the world live. I assumed that the JFrog bin tray offered some sort of, additional enterprise features that they wanted. I
don't
actually
know if they have
asked...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I actually asked someone on the Adobe team. What was it, Emmanuel? I forget who it was. I asked him, why did you guys choose bin tray and not just put them on Docker Hub? And the response was like they hadn't even thought about it. Like, oh, well, we just looked around and thought we'd use this one. What? Docker Hub, where everything is. Just put it on Docker Hub. Yeah. So hopefully they'll just put them on Docker Hub, unless there's some specific feature they need.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a security feature or some, like you said, enterprisey thing where a lot of Adobe's security team had approved that or something.
Accessible image. The only big difference that was actually annoying was Docker Hub will give you public download stats of images, which is really handy. And JFrog, they had it turned off. So maybe that's why they used JFrog, because they wanted to hide the download stats. I'm just being silly. I don't actually know why they did that, but hopefully they'll just move over to Docker Hub, and it'll be nice, ubiquitous standard.
Yep.
Or everyone will just switch over to the Ortus Solutions Docker images, and it'll become moot.
Yeah. But I mean, there are pros and cons for each of them. You know, if you're set up using CommandBox and CFConfig and everything, obviously R1s make sense. But if you're traditional install and you're set up with the Adobe configuration process, then maybe theirs is best for you. That's up to you to decide. But I'm sharing that link right now there. And as Charlie said, he'll try and keep this updated as he gets more information. And obviously Charlie's joining on the spot with the stuff, so I'm sure we'll see more blog posts in the future as information comes out. Okay. So yeah, we'll let you know when we find out. Next up, FusionReactor.
In the meantime, here's the docs to the Ortus Solutions Docker image.
Yep, well, we already shared that one earlier, so if they want to, they can check that out. Okay, so also had a release from FusionReactor, so 8.7.0 was released this last week as well.
They haven't put that on ForgeBox yet. I just looked at ForgeBox this morning to see what the latest version of FusionReactor. You said 8.7.1?
8.7.0.
Oh, nope, it is there then. Sorry,
Okay.
I thought I heard you say 8.7.1. So 8.7.0 is on is on ForgeBox.
Yep,
Never mind, I take back all the mean things I just said. Good on you, FusionReactor. Well done.
Yeah, so this one includes things like Java 16 support, Java 15 support. It actually supports the new ColdBox Elasticsearch.
That's nice, because I had to dial back. I had been testing on like Java 14 or 15 locally, and I had dialed it back to 11 in most places because FusionReactor would get really angry in the console logs when it started up. So that's actually nice that they've added some support in for that.
Yep, so supporting the
Right,
ColdBox Elasticsearch stuff was good. They're improving debugging logging for JDBC tracking, HTTP client tracking, and there's got a few more improvements, and of course they squished a few bugs as well. So that information is available here on the
Hopefully there's some of my
FusionReactor release
bugs.
page. Probably.
So
you
yeah,
make a lot of them.
March 25th is when that version hit ForgeBox. So
They
put it
updated
there.
the same
Probably
day.
as soon as it came out. I think they've automated it at this point. I worked with them to tie their build processes just directly into ForgeBox to push the versions. So
Good.
that's
Yeah,
the way we like it.
Yeah, we obviously like FusionReactor, and yeah, Brad uses it every minute of every day, except when he's pasting links.
Well,
Unless you.
Somebody just asked me this morning, does the CommandBox module for FusionReactor re-download FusionReactor every time you start, your Docker container? And before I was done talking to them, I wound up, copying and pasting a link from the documentation. And the answer was no, it does not re-download, but it does check ForgeBox by default to see if there's a new version, unless you pin it to a specific version.
Yep. Very cool. Okay, we have a bunch of webinars and meetups coming up here soon. So the Adobe webinar series on API creation and management had 2 last week, so on the 24th and the 25th last week. And the next one's coming up on April 28th. So there's about 7, I believe, total. And they're going to be, basically walking through the APIs, looking at different modules, the API Service Manager, and different things. And so that's available. You can register on their site, which we'll share the link. And if you register, I believe they'll email you the videos that have gone as well. So they don't publicly post them, but if you're registered, I believe you can get access to them after the fact as well. So check those out. But again, 7 over the next month or 2. So they've got some well-known ColdFusion community members presenting on it. I think Brian Sappi did the first 1 or 2, but they have some more coming out soon too. Okay, we also had, in case you missed it, so the FusionReactor webinar, Mikey did one on March 25th. I wonder if he was showing off the new stuff when he did that. But basically 5 things you should always check before you release your application. And they had the same thing. If you registered, they would email you the link. So they still have the registration page up. I'm not sure if you want to see that. If you missed it, you might be able to register your email address, and they may still send it to you. I haven't seen it online yet, unless Charlie knows where it's at. You might just need to go to that page and try and get a hold of that. If you missed the Ortus webinar this month, we had Esme Acevedo talking about Vue.js and my ColdBox app. And so that was a good webinar, and we've got the recording up on CFCasts.com already. All you need to do is go sign up for a free account, and you can see those webinars there. We have a lot of our webinar videos up on CFCast if you want to check those out. Okay, we have some new meetups coming up too. So we got a couple from the Online CF Meetup. Charlie's been working hard to get new speakers up there. And we have one on Thursday, April 8th. It's going to be a CSS crash course for CSS haters or novices. So Brad, I think this is right up your alley, because we know that you and design don't get along. So maybe you should learn some
We get
CSS.
along great. Me and my tables, man. Take those JPEGs and slice them up and stick them in the table. We're good to go.
Yeah. So this class is intended for a complete novice to CSS or those who want to, enough to get by but they hate it. So this one basically goes through the basics. I'm kind of curious too, like a lot of these things, even though you think you know what you're doing, you can still learn a lot of stuff. So I might have to watch this one anyway because there's a lot of tricks and tips and like specificity. I always say that wrong. Specificity is a big thing in CSS, and it's a basics, but you really need to understand it, and a lot of people get confused with that. But they will also touch on pre-processes, and Jessica knows her stuff, so it'll be a good session, I'm sure. So, and then we have another one. Brad, what do you think of the CB futures? Because Luis Mahano is going to be doing one about that.
CB Futures. I just did some work with those in CommandBox.
That's what I thought.
They're actually pretty sweet. It doesn't really go by CB Futures in ColdBox. It's called like the Async Manager or whatever.
Yeah.
The latest version of Wirebox, which has the same core files as ColdBox, has the Async Manager built into it, which has really sweet, threading support, asynchronous support. And the docs explain it's much better than CF Thread. It's much better than the Run Async. It's way more powerful, way more configurable. It's basically what threading should be in CFML, and with all the tools that JVM gives you. But the CF engines have always just given us like little drops of threading here and there, and it's pretty paltry. So the CB Futures really unlocks the power of what Java can do. So CommandBox, the next version 5.3, will have the Async Manager, which is built on all these CB Futures that you were talking about. And I just rewrote on last Friday the little animation you get when installing packages in CommandBox, and the logs are scrolling by and the progress bars are going. I rewrote that. It was very simple to do using CB Futures to have a thread pool with a little scheduled thread that I say, spin up a thread and run this, will closure every 100 milliseconds, and it redraws the screen every 100 milliseconds while the installation is happening. And it's really sweet, and I think more people would be using it if they knew about it. So I think that's a highly recommended topic for people to see, because Luis has a fair amount of examples out there. He has a whole repository, which I'm sure he'll probably be using, that has all these task runner based examples that are you can just sit there and run yourself. So to answer your question, I'm a big fan of CB Futures, and I've been digging into them myself.
Yeah, I know that he did a lot of work researching all the Java stuff, and obviously it leverages all of that, so it definitely makes it up to par. It's finally caught up to what it should have been doing, and especially if you're working with JavaScript at all and you have all those powers there already, it's kind of nice to see the same type of thing showing up in ColdFusion. So, but that meetup is going to be April 15th, and that'll be 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Central. So check on the times. Remember that the one by Jessica Keener is going to be 11 a.m. Central, and then the one with Luis is going to be 5 p.m. Central. So the times do differ depending on the speaker, but we got a couple of good topics there. And for those who are interested in Luis's book, so the 102 ColdBox HMVC quick tips and tricks, I'm posting a link there so you guys can go check it out on Gumroad as well. Okay, with that, we finally got through all the news, quite a lot of it this week. But next up, we have some CFCast content. So, as I mentioned, the Vue.js on your ColdBox app presentation from our webinar last week from Esme, that was put out there. So we have that content released this week, and we also have a few more of your CommandBox 0 to hero pieces there too. So module settings, creating custom commands, and injecting a service. So a lot of great content there. So can you remember how far through do you think we are on this CommandBox 0 to hero workshop? Do you remember where injecting a service and custom commands were in the schedule?
No, I don't.
Well, let me see
as much as I jump around in my trainings, I'm like, ooh, and look at this, ooh, and look at this. That could have been anywhere from the first 5 minutes to the last 5 minutes.
Okay,
no, honestly, I don't recall. Obviously, I gave the training, but I haven't been the person, cutting it up and putting it here on CFCast.
Yep. I mean, so far we're up to 24 videos. So
and it was a 2-day training. It was like 12 hours of training, if I recall. I think it was a 2 days, 6 hours a day training. So
Yeah.
There's a lot of content in there.
Yeah, we have 6 hours of content already. I mean, they may have just cut a lot of Brad out, or it might be another 6 hours still coming. So we got a lot of good content in that, and we're
There's a lot of
releasing.
parts in the training where my eyes just glaze over and I say bullet train, CommandBox bullet train.
Yes, you and your bullet train. You could speak a week just on the bullet train, right? Will?
Oh man, each bullet would be an entire session. Oh.
Yeah. And then obviously we have more of that CommandBox Zero to Hero coming up soon. We also have up and running with Quick coming soon, and we also have using DocBox series coming soon. So we're working on those. So some
And
good
DocBox just
content.
got a big overhaul from Michael Bourne.
Yep, sure
He gave
did.
us some serious love.
Especially
DocBox,
some
of
Jason
course,
love.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's Jason, not a guy named Jason, just to be clear. Um, DocBox is, you may remember, is a fork of the original ColdDoc library that one of the Marks, I always forget if it was Mark Mandel or Mark Escher, one of those two, had originally created way back in the day. So
I think that one was
became,
Mark Mandel. Yeah.
okay, that became DocBox, which now has CLI versions of it. We've done a lot with it, so that
Yep,
should be
use it
pretty
all
fun
the
to see.
time. Yep. So yeah, we good to see that coming out too. So, and then of course that CFCast.com. Go check that out. And if you if you see anything there, like I said, you can buy some individual series, or you can just sign up for subscription. And there's a lot of great content out there, and there's English and Spanish too. So there's some Spanish content we release. So if you're Spanish speaking, you prefer to watch some stuff in Spanish, we have some of that content too.
We should like double bill this as like a learn Spanish endeavor. Would it be like learn to speak Spanish while also learning Vue? You know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You could. There's some basic HTML courses that they released just recently, and they had
Yeah.
some other good content from our the Into the Box Latam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if
So
you log into CFCasts, log into your account. When you go to the search page, you can click the little flags, and you can choose turn off the English content, turn on the Spanish content. You can see everything we have there. By default,
and I'll show you that.
I think it'll grab your browser language, and if your browser's set to English, you'll never see the Spanish stuff.
Yep. So here's all the
So,
English here for those watching. If I check Spanish, we will see both. So a few more popped up here. Turn off English.
what flag is that? Is that the El Salvadorian flag?
I think so, because
I don't know the flags well enough.
I believe so, but I might be wrong.
'Cause they're the only Central and South American countries speaking Spanish.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of content here. So we got a couple pages, and I say a lot of them are from Into the Box Latam, but there are some other things as well. So, yep. But yeah, just make sure your flags are turned on or off to make sure you get the right content. So, good tip there, Brad.
It doesn't look like the El Salvadorian flag. It's similar but different. I'll have to ask the
Maybe it's just
CFCast
Spanish
guys what
flag.
flag they use.
Spain.
What'd you say?
Is it Spanish? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'll have to
Sorry.
find that out. I'm curious
Um,
now.
Geographically terrible.
Squirrel.
Yep. Okay, so that's all of our CFCast updates there. But now let's talk about some conferences, because we got quite a few coming up. It's conference season. So first up, we have some virtual Vue love with VueConf. That's going to be April 14th, online, free, and the swag is all gone. So if you missed it, like me, you can cry about it later. It's going to be live video and chat Q&As with speakers. They're going to have attendee lightning talks. They're going to have a live DJ. I told Luis we got to step it up. If they're doing a live DJ, Happy Box must go on this year.
You just
So
make
what-
our own DJs, but
I know, but we got to get the mariachi style. So, yep.
We'll figure it
So, vueconf.us. That's the link to get more information about that. Posting in the chat right now. But a lot of good content there. Redis Conf 2021 has released a little bit more information, so they've now got their sessions online and everything. And they've also invited a lot of us to a $100,000 hackathon if you can use Redis. So,
wait. So if I can use Redis, I get $100,000.
well, you can enter the hackathon for it.
Wait, do I have to forward this email to everyone in my address book and the tracking code's built into Windows 95? I've seen this one.
No, but the theme of the hackathon is build on Redis, which sounds like a pretty simple, but they're talking about all the different services they have, and I didn't even know they had all these. They have Redis Streams for, handling events. Obviously, Redis JSON for storing JSON events. Redis Search, which is Elasticsearch type competitor. Analyzing Stream with Redis Time Series, but also Redis Graph, and then Redis AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, detecting fraud and stuff. I was like, ooh,
They
interesting.
should use the Redis AI to give out the prize money. The machine has spoken.
Yep. So that's got a lot of people's attention. I've been seeing quite a few people talking about that. But they do have their, their sessions online now, so you can find out more about what they're actually presenting, different things. So
So we need to figure out more about this hackathon. Build on Redis Hackathon, April 15th and May 15th, totaling $100,000 in prizes, 52 chances to win. There's bronze to platinum prizes, so $2,500 prizes, $20,000, $2,000, two $5,000, and five $10,000 prizes. I'm curious what you have to make.
yeah,
Like, you have to like make something new that doesn't exist. Due to legal fulfillment restrictions, only legal residents of the following countries are allowed to participate. This is
there's
this
quite
is
a
the
few
fine
though.
print they normally say at the bottom.
Even
Yeah, it really
even
is.
got New Zealand in
Excluding
here.
Quebec. Oh, our Quebec listeners were very terribly sorry. You are not eligible to win. Void where prohibited.
Yeah, it's
Ecuador.
quite a
Belgium,
few.
man.
So
You have to, but it doesn't say what you have to build. What do I have to do to win?
build something using Redis. Something interesting, something cool.
I'm curious what the criteria are.
It's on this page
Like,
right
I
here.
mean, I'm sure you could build something stupid like a randomized quote generator or something, but they'd be like, yeah, that's really dumb. In fact, we're going to charge you for wasting our time building this. I wonder how many entries they get.
I don't know. Probably quite a lot. It sounds like something fun. So, and obviously that's the month after the actual hackathon, the conference. So, go to the conference, learn all about it, and then figure out something to do. Go ahead and do the hackathon. So maybe we should see if we can get a little CFML group together. Someone who's interested. I mean, because that's one of the benefits now. We can use Redis with Adobe for some session management, right? And then with Lucy and the Ortus extension, you can use Redis as well. But I'm wondering, do we support all those extra cool things that it does? Because I don't know if Redis extension handles all that yet. If not, we could just show off that we built this Redis extension for Lucy.
Yeah, we'll just show them the Ortus Redis extension that we built a few years back. Like,
Oh, but now we can update it to maybe handle some of the AI stuff or something. See?
do you really need AI though, just to store a user session?
Well, you can do more than that, though. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be just that. We use Couchbase for way more than just session storage.
It'll be like, this isn't your session, but our AI determined that this is the session scope that you need to use. Like, okay.
Yep. So
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see exactly how their AI stuff works.
Yep. We also have Atlassian Team 21. So this is basically a team building conference, and so figure out more about how to work your team better. So a lot of good stuff in here. Especially working remotely these days, and of course Atlassian has a lot of tools for helping your team work better together. I'm sure Jira is right up there too. So
There is no you in Teams, so if you could leave, please, that would be great.
Yep. So that one is going to be April 28th to 30th, and basically it's all about getting better teammates. Better teams start with better teammates, and it used to be called Summit, I guess. So. And then if you haven't had enough AWS content lately with that 3-week-long reInvent, AWS has another little conference for you. So previously they did AWS Summits, which are like online, in-person free one-day events. But now they've got a AWS Summit online. This is the Americas one. So it's going to be May 12th to 13th. It's free, and a lot of good content here. So, they learn about all the new stuff from AWS because they release like 15, 20, 30 new services every year. And they got a lot of good content. So if you want to dive into step functions, you want to dive into S3 or some Fargate or whatever, they have a lot of great stuff there. So another conference to keep you busy. That's not all. We also have Dockercon, which the registration is now open.
More.
Yep. Dockercon is May 27th. It's going to be a free online virtual event, and it's for developers by developers. But their registration is now available. And if you'd like to speak, the call for speakers is open for another couple of days. So April 1st at like midnight is the cutoff if you want to speak at Dockercon. So you can do the call for speakers. You can also register now for free. So Dockercon's always great. Can't wait to have another live in person one though. They were real fun when we went to some of those.
I never
So
went to any of them. You always went to them with Luis.
oh yeah, we went to the one in San Francisco. Sacramento. No, it was San Francisco. Sorry, confused.
The
But
Couchbase Connect was in San Francisco.
yeah, it's pretty fun. So a lot of good content, and they've got stuff from the basics all the way to, they call them ninjas and black belts, and so those sessions you get into the details where you're configuring the drivers and the settings and way more than most of us will ever need. But if you're working
It's
on some,
interesting to see if we could submit some papers into some topics to Dockercon. I'm just trying to think, like, is there anything that we do with Docker in the CF space that's actually like unique or interesting? I mean, like, we do a lot of stuff with Docker, but I always feel like we do the same stuff that probably like everybody does with Docker. So I always feel that way. Like whenever I'm trying to decide what to submit to a conference, I'm always like, yeah, I use this technology, but do I do anything that like the rest of the world doesn't already do with it? I don't actually know.
yeah. I mean, I think the CommandBox Docker image is pretty unique where you could run multiple engines using the same image. It'll CFConfig helps translate settings from one engine to another. Most images are really specific to an engine or a service. Like we say, what do you want to run? It's really good for framework maintainers and everything. And I mean, I think that's something maybe unique to, a lot of images are real specific, like, hey, are you running WordPress? Here's your image. Are you running this? Here's your image. You're like, you run whatever the heck you want, any engine that,
Yeah, it is a very. Now, I'm sure somebody out there probably be like, that's not how you're supposed to use Docker. You should make 50 separate images,
But people
actually,
can
it's
build
nice.
on top of it. That's the key. I mean, it's a good
Well, yeah, our
utility
image is still
framework.
like a building block. You have the ability just to like start it and map a volume in, or you have the ability to like extend it. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Of course,
maybe it's like we built these images to be friendly because we're a framework that has to test it in every single different engine possibility. We need it to be compatible, but all the settings need to be the same across engines. Like maybe building, something like that might be interesting. Maybe some other people might, learn something from it. But you could maybe say how Docker changed the CFML world. Or brought a language back from the dead or something. We could run with some catchy thing like that, but they'll probably think it still did. Sorry.
well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the I've had firsthand experience with trying to get ColdFusion related talks into major conferences because as soon as they see ColdFusion, they're like, oh, pass. So it's sort of cheesy and dumb. You have to like, Lisa and I have done this with DevNexus. We've both spoken at DevNexus, but you have to like give them a generic title, and then like Luis did one on RabbitMQ, and then when you get up there, you're like, haha, ColdFusion examples. Yeah, I don't know, whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of dumb. But if you wear the ColdFusion badge too proudly in your topic description, there's a good chance they won't select it.
Yeah, maybe just say how, Docker inspired the next generation of tools or something, and then talk about all the things we built because we're working with Docker every day, and I mean, obviously it's got the CF spin, but all the different things we built. I don't know.
My
Let's
session
say
will be why Docker Swarm is all you need and Kubernetes is annoyingly complicated and everyone who uses it hates it. That's my session.
something like that.
I
Yeah.
was just having a conversation with someone this morning and they were complaining about clients. They were trying to help with Kubernetes and how it's just so complicated and no one can ever debug it. But hey.
Oh, so apparently, speaking of PHP, I don't know how that came up, but Scott said official PHP Git server targeted an attempt to bury malware in Codebase.
Do you have a
Yep.
link for that?
He probably can't post it because he's not a moderator in our channel.
Welcome
Sorry,
to your
Scott.
TED Talk.
But you can always zap it to us in Slack if you want, Scott, and we can share it or whatnot. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I remember. Was it what was it? TED Talk? There was something I had seen that talked about a Linux vulnerability that had happened the exact same way. Somebody targeted like an SVN server, the source control server, and they snuck a commit in under an existing user that they hacked into, and it opened some backdoor in Linux, and it was caught because of a code review process. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. For sure. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about some conferences and trainings here. So we have, as we mentioned, we've done a couple of Ortus workshops, and we got a few of them up on CFCasts. We have some more coming soon with dates. So we'll do another CommandBox 0 to Hero, ColdBox 0 to Hero, and ColdBox Hero to Superhero. Reach out if you guys are interested in them, and maybe we can try and prioritize the date planning for that. I know we got them penciled in somewhere, but if you have a preference, let us know, and we can try and get those scheduled for you. We also have some conference information coming out soon. The call for speakers for Into the Box should be coming out very soon. We have it planned in September this year. So September 2021, the call for speakers will be out very soon, and then we'll be giving you more details. At this time, we're probably just doing online only. Vaccines are going well, but we're not sure if travel and everything will be opened up the way it should be. So online is the way we're thinking it's going to have to stay. But Into the Box Latam, December 2021. So we'll let you know how those are happening. We think Into the Box, though, we're going to try and mix it up this year and do more of a developer week style. And basically spread them out so you don't have to decide which session you go to. We spread them all out and give more time for mingling in between, because that's one of the big things people are missing from conferences. At the end of last year's Into the Box Online, we just had a Zoom session where everyone just got to chit chat and stuff, and that was probably the most fun about the whole conference. So we're going to try and leave the rooms open between sessions so people could just chit chat a little more, and and do that interconnectivity, that hallway track, as they say. That's really important.
Hallway track.
Okay, and if you're wanting more conferences because you just can't get enough, go to comps.tech, and they have lists of tons and tons of different conferences, online, in person, and broken down by different languages, including CFML. So as soon as we get our dates finalized and our site up, we will be posting them there as well. Okay, so next up, let's talk about our blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. And first up, we have the Charlie Earhart blog about the Docker images moving from JFrog's bin tray. We talked about that already. But again, that's on the coldfusion.adobe.com site, and you can get more information. The links are in the show notes. Now, next one up, we have a blog from Ben Nadel, and this was interesting. Did you know that the safe navigation operator checks both left and right operands in ColdFusion, Brad?
I saw his tweet on that, and I didn't look at the post, but my first thought was, that's interesting. But I was thinking I needed to look at his post to understand what he meant by that.
So yeah, usually the safe operator, I assumed, said if the struct exists, then look for the variable inside of it. But what he was saying is if it will return null if the struct doesn't exist, or the variable inside the struct doesn't exist. So, before you always have to do struct check key exists, etc. And if you have a really long chain, you can have to, do several struct key exists, and then work your way down. But I was thinking that it would only return null.
So it's basically like the equivalent of the Elvis mixed in with it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, the whole Elvis and safe navigation operators in ColdFusion have sort of been kind of, I don't know, bastardized is the right word, but they've been watered down a ton to where they're these kind of super liberal, we will swallow up any and all errors of any kind within 5 lines of this line of code. If anything blows up, null.
Just null.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of annoying because they've almost got a layer of ambiguity about what the heck they actually do. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I'd really ever thought about that, because the safe navigation, really, the way you think about it is it's supposed to look to the right-hand side. So here's a struct I know exists, but here's a key that maybe exists, but I'm not sure. But it sounds like we're saying is
I thought the safe navigation was the opposite. I always thought
because it allows you to dereference a key in a struct without an error if it doesn't exist.
See, and I always thought it did it based, in his example, he's looking at device model appearance. So I would expect a null if device model didn't exist, but if device model did exist, I'd assume it had appearance in it. But so maybe it's I always thought I don't have to worry about did the struct exist that the struct exists in. If you're down 5 levels, you don't have to check all 5 levels. You're just does this key exist all the way at the bottom?
Well, you would use safe navigation at each point, right? If you had foo.com.var.deviceModel.appearance, you would put question mark dot at every single level, and at every level, when it dereferenced the next key, it would just short circuit if it got a null, right there. But
Yeah, because otherwise it throws a big error that it doesn't exist. So yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess
yeah,
it does make sense then, because like, does it
well, it
exist?
doesn't really.
Yeah.
Well,
What should it do?
unless you actually want a null value out of it, which most people use Elvis when they want to default something that's null to an actual not null default value. User dot name. And if there's no name, then put the text. We don't have a name for this user. That's the typical use case. And so anytime people are like, oh, I'll use safe navigation, there's really no benefit over just the Elvis operator, which already will swallow pretty much errors of any kind, and just give you the default value if it didn't exist. Um,
Oh, see, yeah. I guess I
but
assumed
that
that if one of the pieces above it didn't exist, it would throw an error. Like, if the struct that you're looking for a struct inside of didn't exist, I assume the Elvis would throw an error, but maybe not.
Elvis will swallow errors all the way back, like multiple dots, which I don't
Oh,
necessarily think is correct, but
interesting.
that's why I said in CFML, Elvis and safe navigation have sort of been bastardized a bit to the point where they're just incredibly liberal. They'll kind of swallow any sort of errors, even if it's because in other languages is more strict. If you have foo.bar Elvis default value, foo has to exist, and bar is the only thing that's allowed to not exist. But in CFML, at least with both engines, I think, even if foo doesn't exist, Elvis is like, forget about it, I got it.
Okay.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anything on the left-hand side, hey, here's your default value. Which is why the safe navigation operator is fairly worthless, in my opinion, in ColdFusion, unless you just literally wanted to get a null back. If you're going to default it to something that's not null, you might as well just use Elvis, because Elvis already allows for any sort of, dereferencing, of a null on the left side to just be, swallowed up, which, I mean,
Yeah.
it's useful. It's just ambiguous in what it does.
Yeah. Well, that probably brings us to the next one, which Ben wrote before that one, was the consuming sparse, unpredictable, omit empty Golang JSON payloads using null coalescing and Lucy. So basically, this one, he was, trying to remonolith. He's trying to make his monolith back into a monolith after the microservice.
Remonolithification.
Yeah, my brain ain't working that well today. But so basically, he was taking a Go service that talked to another Go service that was returning JSON, but they had all these empties. So the JSON structure was basically very different every time he got it back, because things were empty, were just removed. And so he was using the null coalescing operator, or aka the Elvis operator, to do that. And so, he worked through this Go code. So if you haven't seen Go code before, that's what it looks like. It's kind of interesting. And then talked about using, unpredictable value and coalesce to an empty value. And so he uses that in several places to, try and regenerate the structure the way it should be. And so lots of good examples, and shows the difference, from what Go has and compared to when he did the coalescing. That's just kind of a nice way to use it. And I thought it was kind of interesting to see
So
Go, because I hadn't actually seen much of Go before. I've used it I've run stuff built on it, but I've never really taken time to look at the code.
Yeah, so like if you look at his big code block around line 108, he has a return statement which returns an implicit struct, not an implicit struct, a struct literal, and then each key of the struct literal references the struct he actually wants to return with a key which he Elvises to a default value. My favorite way of doing this, which I think is a little cleaner, is I like to use the append function. If I have it now, it only works one level, unfortunately. But if I have a struct which may have missing keys, and I want just to pack in any keys that are missing and leave untouched the keys that exist, I'll just take that struct dot append, slam in the struct of all my default values I want until it overrides false. And then ColdFusion will do the work of checking, do you exist, do you exist, do you exist, do you exist. It'll just lay my default struct on top of my regular struct. And I think that's a little bit less messy. But like I said, it only works for the top level struct key. So if you wanted to do something like recursive, you'd have to get fancier. But that's how I've always kind of dealt with that sort of, I want to default things in the struct method.
Yeah, that's cool. That's definitely a good way to do it. But yeah, like I said, I like the article, and for those of you who haven't used the Elvis operator, this is a perfect example of the way you'd like to use it. So
You'll notice Ben's also using a function called null value in his blog. If you're a Adobe ColdFusion user, you might not recognize that. That is a Lucy specific function, and it allows you to generate a null even if you have full null support turned off. The typical and messier workaround is you see people use JavaCast to get a null, but Lucy, I really like, has that nice little null value function that is just built in and just does nothing but return a null.
Yep.
Very handy.
Yep, for sure. And obviously that when he was dealing with the Elvis operator, that got him thinking about the safe operator, and that's why he wrote that other article too. So, okay, so we got a tweet from this this guy Brad Wood. I'm not sure if you know him or not, but
Sounds like a jerk.
yeah, sometimes. But yeah,
it's an old article, like really old, like April 6, 2000. But Joel Spolsky, the Joel on Software blog, I don't even know where I came across this, but I've always liked this article. And ironically, when I've tried to Google for it, I have had a hard time finding it. But it's things you should never do, part 1. I don't know if you ever wrote a part 2 to this. But the whole like overarching part of the article, point of the article is don't rewrite code. Like one of the worst things you can do, and he uses Netscape as an example. I mean, if anybody remembers Netscape 6 from back in the day, they're like, we're going to rewrite the entire code base from scratch. It'll be so awesome. And that's basically when Netscape went to crap. His whole point is existing code, even if you think it's ugly, even if it's old, even if you think it's, not very well organized, it has intrinsic value. It has business value. It has bug fixes. That has, years of testing and stuff. And so one of the worst things you can think of as a company is, let's just rewrite this entire application from scratch because that'll somehow be shinier, newer, better. The reality is you're gonna lose market share. You're gonna spin your wheels for years, and you're gonna come up with something that basically probably sucks. And it's just funny because this is an article from like literally 21 years ago. But today what's that?
I said flashbacks.
Yeah, I know, but I mean today, even though you look at it, like the libraries he's talking about are all like super dated, but you still see people today being like, we've got this legacy code base and it sucks, and we're gonna rewrite it all in PHP from scratch, and now it'll be shiny and amazing. And it's a really bad idea. And so I came across the article and I just read it again because I enjoy reading it. I've probably read it 20 times before. And I threw it out there on Twitter because I knew somebody probably needed to hear it. So go read it.
Exactly. It's
and I like it because we just got done talking with Ben about Ben Nadell's stuff, and he's got this legacy or this old ColdFusion monolithic thing that his company went through a process of like, we're gonna replace it. And now he's going through and he's making it better. He's refactoring it. He's bringing it up to speed because the value they had in their existing monolithic application. And I think that it has a nice tie in there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, microservices are great, except now you got to manage like 500 microservice relationships and how they talk to each other, and deploying code, deploying new code on one of them, and now you got to deploy everything at the same time. Like coordination becomes an effort. Obviously, you can API things and version things, but it's just more of an issue than you had before in a monolith. And so, pros and cons to everything.
Ben's blog on that was really good. Kind of a pragmatic approach to where it makes sense to microservice everything. So I like that.
Yep.
Netscape 6. Yeah, I remember using the very first preview releases of Netscape 6, and they were like, we're gonna rewrite it from scratch, and it would take like a minute to open up. That's when Internet Explorer took over the market back in the day.
Yep, because there was no they said there was no Netscape 5. They went from 4 to 6 because it took so long. So kind of crazy. And then, so next up we also have another tweet from you, but this one's talking about another oldie but goodie, CFML badges. So there's a whole ton of cool CFML badges that are on the site. So if you want to put these in your build processes and your markdown, etc., there's a whole bunch of cool little CFML related badges that he made. I think he's got a ton of them in here.
If you scroll to the bottom, there's like a view all or a view more.
Yep, so Modernize or die. So you got... Yeah, I like this one. Was it 60% of the time it works every time?
That sounds like something that... didn't Dave Ferguson used to say that in the CF Hour podcast?
Yeah, something like that, yep.
I forget how he worded it, but it's something similar to that.
Yep.
Anyway, I mean, I don't remember how long ago Matt Gifford made this site, but it's been around for a while, and somebody had pointed it out, I think, in the Ortus Slack, and I was like, I should tweet about this. I bet people have forgotten about it. Yeah, you can just copy and paste this markdown, slap it into your readmes, and you can get cool little badges on your
Yeah.
ForgeBox description and your
Yep.
GitHub.
Available for ForgeBox. Built by developers, built by hipsters, Nick beards. Built with ColdBox, CommandBox, Framework
I only have a
1.
neck beard because I haven't shaved right now. I need to clean myself up.
Built with swag. Yeah. So there's some funny ones out there, but some of them are actually useful too.
Didn't he have the ability to make your own custom one? Because these were all like out of the box ones.
I'm
I
not
thought he
sure.
had a scroll to the bottom of this page. I thought he had a. Maybe I just imagine. I was thinking there was some way you could provide your own text. I'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
But I think these are all like SVGs or whatever built on the fly. Look at it.
Yep. Tested on
have some
junior
fun.
developers. Yeah. So that's kind of cool little thing. And yeah, like you said, it's one of those things that's been around for a while and you just kind of forget about it sometimes.
Look at that badge. Testing? What's testing?
Yep. Another good one. We had another tweet from Zach Spitzer about performance. Reminds me of one of the shows my kids watch, like Boom. Like Boom what? Or is it Bang what? I don't know, I forget.
I don't know what you're talking
Liz
about.
and Maddie. It's a show the kids watch, and they have these little catchphrases. But he was all excited because he made the directory list info path 5 times faster. So instead of 2571 milliseconds, he got it down to 582. So he talked a little bit about it, but it's kind of cool with open source. You can jump in there and look at something if you're having problems with it. Look at the code and figure out, why it's so slow and make it better. I know you did that with a few things too. So
Yeah, Zach's been on a terror here, fixing stuff in Lucy. It's been really nice. In fact, I just put in a ticket yesterday for well, it was the bug, the thing I was complaining about earlier in our podcast about Lucy, hiding error messages from me. I put in a bug for it, and I was thinking about doing a pull request if I had a chance. And I actually just now looked, and Zach already went ahead and put in the fix for my ticket. So he's been fixing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep. It's just kind of cool to see that happening, and he has been on a bit of a run with that. He's got stuff flying everywhere. I think we even have another thing. I'll just talk about that right now too. So he has an update to his performance analyzer tool as well. So I think this is version 2.0.0.1. So now he has a report by file or path. So if you have the more details in the analyzer to find out time, etc., what line numbers, etc. there. So he's working hard on getting this stuff out, and so the performance analyzer extension is available in Lucy, and you can find out a little bit more about how your server's running, and look at some bottlenecks. So it's kind of nice to be built straight into the Lucy engine, and obviously if you need to drill in more, FusionReactor will give you even more information. But it's very cool.
I haven't actually tried his performance analyzer. Is it at a stable version, or is it a pre-release version?
I think it's at version 2 now. He's been releasing it for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. I know he didn't have a whole lot of features when we first announced it a long time ago. We actually had it as a podcast pick for ForgeBox, but yeah, he's been doing lots of updates.
I want to look and see if it shows up. Performance. Where's it on the screen? Oh, here we go. Yeah, Lucy Performance Analyzer. Yep, so if you go under your Lucy Administrator, click on Applications, it shows up right there on the Available, or the Not Installed is called, the Not Installed section. And yep, there's the latest version, 2003. I just wanted to check, there was a heap dump plugin for Lucy, which is actually insanely useful when you have a client and you wanted to pull a heap dump, but it's really difficult for them to do it from the command line. There's a extension in Lucy where you just click a button, it'll do a heap dump for you. But that one, I never knew it existed because it only exists in like an alpha state. It's never had a stable release. And you have to click a magic little show pre-release versions for that extension to pop up. And I had never clicked on those. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's like a whole handful of additional extensions I never knew existed because I had never checked that box to show me the pre-release ones. So that's why I was curious if the performance one always showed up, but it does because it's a stable version.
Cool.
Sweet.
So there was another product update by Tony Junkies. So the PDF Tools SDK for document services version 1.3.0. So he released his the CFML version of Adobe's Java sample project. So using the PDF Tools SDK for document services to include the document generation example. So I'll share that for those watching. But basically, he's just got a ColdFusion version of the the SDK, and so you can get all this here. But it does require Java JDK version 8 or above, and it's running on Adobe Engine 2016 or Lucy 5. But basically, you've got so much quota for free without having to get the paid credentials. But you do need to set up a key and everything. But yeah, so he sets it up, gives you all the rundown. So, and I think Ray Camden is actually working on those document services API. So I'm sure if you see Ray's blog posts, if you're watching those, they're not talking about ColdFusion anymore, but he's talking about working with those Adobe's document services API. And so you can use Tony's one if you want to do it from ColdFusion.
Yeah, I guess Ray's back at Adobe now, isn't he?
Yep. Yeah, working on the document services as a developer.
Reading through Tony's README here, and I see he's using CommandBox task runners. I approve. I completely approve.
Yep. So that's a good little setup, and yeah, there's some nice tools in there. They do, Adobe does do their PDF stuff well, and that API really lets you tap into some pretty neat features. If you need to go above and beyond what ColdFusion does, or the Ortus extension of PDFs for Lucy. Okay, and so last up we have a blog post from John Clausen and Ortus, which is the Docker version 3.3 images. I know we talked about that briefly, but for those watching, I'll just show you what the blog post looks like. So it shows some of the changes, some of the updates, what's been added, and what's been fixed. So if you need more information, definitely go check that out.
And it's also worth noting, I don't actually know, if Charlie's still in the chat, he may. I don't know what modules, if any, that Adobe is including in their 2021 Docker images. But if you use Adobe ColdFusion 2021 in CommandBox in general, but as well as the Docker image, you get it with no modules installed, which is how Adobe ships their war. So in order for you to actually be able to run your application, like if you're using ColdBox or things, you'll likely have to put some CFPM commands in your Docker file, which is pretty easy with CommandBox. I've done it myself. I just have a run line that says cd into my web root and box CFPM install, and then the list of things that I need. But just a little note on that, because the Adobe 2021 engines are pretty much kind of like Lucy Light in that they don't come with anything. So.
Yep. Yeah, and some of them are a little tricky too.
Now that ColdBox works, I expect more people to be
needing that.
Oh, and this is something that Lucy doesn't have. So kudos to Adobe. Adobe has the CFPM command has an option to scan through your source code and tell you what modules you need ahead of time. Because otherwise you end up, you think you have all the modules and you try to test your code on 2021, which is what we were doing this week for ColdBox. And then, you think it works, and then you hit some page you haven't hit yet that uses a CF zip tag, and like, I need the CF zip module as well. So if you're converting up to Adobe 2021, you can use that tool to scan your code base. It'll tell you what you need to install. Okay, looks like Charlie is confirming that Adobe's Docker images also start with no modules. Okay, perfect. So it looks like you're in the same boat either way. Just a deployment consideration to keep in mind is the need to install those.
Yeah, and they have that JSON file for the CFPM as well, so you can install kind of like a box.json for CommandBox dependencies.
I've played with the JSON file. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, because I was trying this experiment to see if I could create like groups, like a dependency group that would have like everything ColdBox needed. I had some problems not really knowing if I was doing the right thing, and I think I reached out on the Adobe channel in Slack asking if I could get some more input from the Adobe engineers, and I don't think they ever got back with me, so I kind of just gave up on it. But yeah, I wish there was some better documentation on how to use those JSON files as well, because there's an existing problem we still haven't even solved yet, which is, and I'm waiting again to see if I can get someone on Slack from Adobe to reply to me. I don't know if Adobe has a mechanism whereby you can install extensions offline. Because at Ortus, we already have clients looking to switch to Adobe ColdFusion 2021, but they have air-gapped servers with no internet access, and it's not as simple as just run a CFPM command. It's like, we don't have no internet. We have to be able to manually download these from somewhere, stick them on the drive, which is something Lucy, supports. So, all right, Charlie says yes, they do. See, I should have just asked Charlie because I've been waiting 2 days for a reply from Adobe. Maybe if you can pass along a link to that, Charlie, because I hadn't been able to find that information, and that's already a pain point that people are running into. I love the ease of CFPM, CFPM install feed, boom. But as soon as you have to deal with an air-gapped server, you need another workflow. And I'm looking to try to make some ways built into CommandBox to help alleviate this, if possible. Some ways for CommandBox to be able to help you acquire these and install them. So we'll if I can maybe if Charlie can pass on that information, that'll help us understand how to do offline installs.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know a lot of those government clients, especially, they're usually locked down very hard.
Yep.
So.
Yep, and that's a common pain point with all of our clients doing that. I mean, because the CommandBox has the same problem. You can't just run box install as well. It's the same sort of issue.
Cool. Well, Charlie got you a link, so that's awesome. Thanks, Charlie. We appreciate it. I'm sure all of our clients are asking Brad to appreciate it too. Okay, so next up we have Find a Job. So we have 3 new jobs. This one might be a duplicate here in Falls Church, Virginia, for application developer, ColdFusion. They do actually have I think they said they wanted at least 6 months of ColdFusion. I think at least 1 year of .NET, but they had a pretty big list of optional things. So if you're looking for a job, that's a good one there. And there's one at Chantilly, Virginia as well, ColdFusion developer. So get CFMLjobs.com. They pull in feeds from all over the place, and you can post a job right there as well if you'd like, and that's free. So if you're looking for a job, get CFML Jobs. Should help you out there. So a few new ones, and they had quite a few. There's over 66 since December, so they seem to be piling up. Okay, so next up we have our ForgeBox module of the week, and since you mentioned it earlier, I thought we should make that our module of the week, the CommandBox update check. So, for those of you that didn't know about it, like me, I didn't even know we had one, but we have the CommandBox update check module, which apparently, if you have an outbound connection, when you start up your Box CLI, it'll check and see if any of your system modules need updating. So, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, and if you use that, you'll get to see in the next version of CommandBox the sweet new ASCII table functionality that Eric Peterson helped build into CommandBox. So the list of dependencies and the version you've asked for, and the new version, and the brand new there's like 3 different version columns. It's all kind of explained. Are all in a nicely formatted table output now, which is pretty sweet. That's the update and the outdated command are 2 places we're already using that. So it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw a little sneak peek screenshot of that, and I was like, ooh, pretty.
Yeah, it's fun. Eric did a lot of work coming up with a little library where you could just hand it arrays of structs, and it would just build a sort of ASCII art table in the console. And then I kind of massaged it to be able to use a query object directly and to auto, shrink the columns, try to get it to fit in the console. So that'll be coming as a first-class feature of the print helper in CommandBox. So you'll be able to use it directly in your CommandBox task runners and your custom modules as well.
That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things which is never hard, formatting in the CLI. So I know you do work pretty hard on that, even with your design skill problems. So we appreciate it, and yeah, that does look pretty cool. Be nice to have that extra feature there. Okay, so next up we have our VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. So this one is called Paste Overflow. So basically, you can directly paste from Stack Overflow snippets and from Command Palette. So you look for something, click a button, it'll automatically take the answer that was selected and approved, and just paste it straight in your code. But that's kind of an April Fool's joke. That's not really the one you should be using, but it's kind of funny. But we also have a Stack Overflow instant search, and so that's more the real hint, tip, and trick of the week. But it's kind of funny to have that other one in there too. So, yeah, Stack Overflow instant search allows you to basically to search directly inside your VS Code. And this is what I was talking about, Brad. It might be kind of nice to have a document search type thing in VS Code for CommandBox. So you can just start typing, not sure what you're looking for, start typing, you search it, and then it can look straight up. So that way you can find the find the appropriate Stack Overflow question and go look for it. But yeah, the other one we have, like I said, the more of the April Fool's one is kind of one of those funny little ones where, yeah, you can just basically start typing a question in here, pull up the search, and it'll actually just paste stuff straight into your code. So whatever the answer of the day was, whatever gets approved, it'll just throw someone straight in there. But yeah, like I said, that's more of a joke one. So happy April Fools for everybody. But yep, so those are the two for this week. Again, the Stack Overflow search actually sounds useful. Paste Overflow sounds like a nightmare. But last but not least, we want to thank our Patreon supporters. Again, those are those people that are personally supporting our open source initiatives and our podcast, CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes. And also, of course, it handles the cloud infrastructure and everything that ForgeBox and our package management with CommandBox uses. So, as we mentioned, we've got a pretty big uptick lately in Patreon supporters. People going to patreon.com/OrtusSolutions and supporting us. And the reason is because now with the Ortus community, all Patreon supporters have their own private forum access on that community site. They also get a cool little profile badge on their profile inside of the community website. And then if you're a bronze package and up, you also get a ForgeBox Pro account now included, and you also get a CFCast subscription included as a perk for your awesome Patreon supporters. So that's bronze packages and up as we start to get some of those extra cool perks. So, Brad, do you want to handle the names for this week?
I can. I'm just busy reading this article that Charlie sent me about configuring local repository for 2021.
Okay, well then I'll do the names then.
No, I want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So thanks to our Patreon supporters, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, David Bellinger, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Jonathan Perret, Mario Rodriguez, Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, John Wilson from Synaptrix, Yugesh Mathur, Joseph Lamry, Ben Liddell, Brett DeLine, Carl Von Stutton, Charlie Earhart, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, Didier Lesnicki, Edgardo Cabezas, Jan Yannick, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Erickson, Jordan Clark, Kai Koenig, Laxma T, Leon Sir Mellis, Matthew Darby, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Patrick Flynn, Ross Phillips, Scott Steinbeck, Stephanie Lange, and Stephen Klotz.
Yep.
Our Patreon supporters, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, and as usual, they're up on our ortusolutions.com/about-us/sponsors if you want to see them and all their pretty faces for those who have provided images. But yep, it's been a long show, lots of great news, and Charlie's given us lots of great information in the chat there. So thanks everybody for tuning in, watching it live, and for everyone who's listening to it later. Really appreciate your listenership, and yeah, we'll see you all next week. Happy April Fools. Hopefully we don't see too many crazy ones on Google, but it's always interesting when they do some of those.
And it's not just April Fool's, it's my birthday tomorrow, so
Oh,
I'll be a year older next time I'm on here.
That's crazy. Happy birthday, old man.
I was this close to being an April Fool's joke. Jokes on my parents, suckers!
Yeah, that would have been funny. Too funny. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us, and yeah, we'll see you all next week. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.